I have ranked many things in RimWorld in the past, from weapons to armor to factions and biomes, and a couple days ago I have ranked all prosthetics. Today we are ranking all of the implants. Now if you don't know what the difference is between prosthetics and implants, prosthetics replace organic organs or limbs, while implants are implanted into organic organs or limbs. They can't be implanted into prosthetics. So there's the difference. Now implants are great. You will want or need them in pretty much every playthrough, if only to make body modders happy. So let's get ranking. Now first we have 3 skin glands that all do the same thing. They are implanted in your skin and they give your colonists some protection. Each of them cost a bit more with plasteel and advanced components. And first we have tough skin gland, which is the weakest of the 3. Let me just check the numbers. It's 35% for sharp, 10% for blunt, and 30% for heat protection. There you go. It also gives your colonists minus 5% movement, which could be a bit of an issue, but minus 5% is not that bad. Now, if you don't have that many advanced components, don't have that much plasteel, but you still want to give them some protection and you don't want really any negatives that come with the other 2, then this one is definitely a decent choice. So we're gonna put the tough skin gland into A tier. Now then we have the armor skin gland. It costs a bit more when it comes to plasteel advanced components to craft. Let me check the numbers. It's in the middle of the pack. It gives you 52% for the sharp, 20% for blunt, and 40% for heat damage. So a big improvement over this one on the sharp, and a bit smaller improvement on blunt and heat damage protection. This definitely slows you down a bit more. I think it's 10%. Yeah, it's 10% movement penalty. And it also makes your colonists slightly uglier. Apparently, you know, implanting stones and such into your, I don't know what exactly they implant, but into their skin, it makes them ugly. And so this gives your colonists minus 1 beauty, which means minus 20% opinion from pretty much everybody around them. Now, I personally don't consider that a problem at all. I don't really care if my colonists are ugly or not. You can also give them some implants or stuff like aesthetic noses that gives them extra beauty. So, you know, if you want to counter that, there you go. But I still think this is definitely an A tier implant. And then last but not least, we have the stone skin implant, which is the best of these, also the most costly. I think it's like up to 8 advanced components to build this one. So it is pretty costly, but it's got huge protection, 70% for sharp damage, 30% for blunt, and 50% for heat damage. So, you know, building these into your tanks is gonna be huge. Somebody just stands in front of everybody else that's shooting, just soaks up all the shots from the enemy that's coming at you. This would be pretty huge, especially combined with some heavy armor. Now this, of course, slows them down even more. I think it's 15% slow. But if you build this into a tank, as I said, the tank just needs to stand there and soak the damage. They don't need to really move fast. Of course, it's minus 2 beauty again, so even worse. It's like having a staggeringly ugly pawn. But if you install this on a staggeringly ugly pawn already, it's not gonna give them even more debuffs from the beauty. So doesn't really matter. And of course, again, you can improve this if you want with some aesthetic noses or something like that. But I really don't worry about that too much. I think this is amazing, huge, and great for if you can afford for pretty much all of your fighter pawns, and if not, just the main tank. We're gonna put this up here into S tier. Next on the list, we have the Healing Enhancer. This, again, plasteel advanced components to make it. It is really great because it boosts the natural healing rate of your colonists by 150%. So basically, if they have injuries, they're gonna get up much faster because the natural healing rate is gonna start fixing these things. So once again, combine this with something like a stone skin gland, can be really amazing for your tanks because it's, you know, just gonna stand there, take the damage, natural healing is gonna kick in, and there's some, you know, other things you can do. It's really decent. You know, especially if you install this on people that get hurt a lot, hey, S tier, 100%. Next on the list, we have the Aesthetic Shaper. Now, this is the one I was talking about before. It will give your pawns +1 beauty, which means, you know, it can counter some of these stone skin glands and stuff like that. If you really care about that. I personally don't really care about that. I don't mind if my colonists are ugly. Sure, you know, that might lead to some more fights between them, but usually it's really not a problem. It's really not a problem. So I think the Aesthetic Shaper for that +1 beauty, not amazing. C tier. Next on the list we have the Coagulator. Now Coagulator makes your colonists bleed half as fast or half as slow. I don't know how to say this, but basically they bleed at 50% rate of normal. So anybody that's on the front line that might be fighting a lot, this is definitely great. You know, combine them with the natural healing boost and then maybe Stone Skin Gland, and you have a unstoppable tank. This is also great for like late game prolonged fights where you might be fighting a lot of like centipedes and stuff that take a long time to punch through their armor and kill them. And you might have a lot of colonists, but some of them get downed in the process. Now, usually you would want to rescue them so they don't bleed out there. But if they have the Coagulator, their bleeding is going to be much slower, meaning that you don't need to go there for them and rescue them instantly. So you can take your time and actually defeat the raid before taking care of your colonists. So I think this is definitely an S tier as well. Next on the list we have the Immuno Enhancers. These can be implanted into your pawn's kidneys, and each of them will boost immunity gain speed by 8%. So 2 of them up to 16% immunity gain. So this is great if you're in a swamp. If you're doing a swamp playthrough, definitely will want some of these because you know, malaria and all those diseases will constantly strike in swamps every year, probably twice a year. And this is just gonna help your colonists. Not, you know, you are at this point, you can craft these things. You usually have enough medicine to keep them alive. That's not a problem anymore, but it's gonna keep them out of beds for longer, because if they're sick and they're like being treated for malaria, they're gonna spend sleeping a lot. And with this, you're gonna shorten that so they can go back to fighting and crafting and doing all the things for you. So definitely a great thing, especially for swamps, but otherwise, you know, very decent as well. We're gonna put it up here into A tier. Next on the list, we have the Love Enhancer. This, if you don't know, when mommy and daddy sleep together, mommy and daddy colonists, and they make some loving, they're gonna both get +8 mood bonus. This makes it that they get +12 mood bonus. It only needs to be installed on one person, and then the other one gets the same bonus as well. But it's just +4 mood for colonists. It's really not that worth spending advanced components on this. I would rather save them for pretty much anything else over here on the list. It would be really the bottom of the list that you really want to work on. So unfortunately, while I do love some loving, gotta have to go into F tier. Next on the list, we have Venom Fangs. They are pretty cheap to make, and they are really the only weapon implant that we have over here. If you watch my prosthetics a couple of days ago, in that video, I have talked about various weapons and how they can be used as a secondary weapon for your range units when they have, you know, when they're out there and they have a ranged weapon and they suddenly get mauled by a bear and they have to fight back. Out of all those weapons, Venom Fangs, probably the worst. They also have a toxic buildup, so they could be that niche opportunity if you fight somebody for a prolonged time and, you know, you get the toxic buildup, but very good chance that your pawn's gonna get down way before. So I really cannot recommend these. We're gonna put them out here in the F tier. Next on the list, we have the Gastro Analyzer. This is implanted into organic nose, does not work with prosthetic nose or aesthetic nose or any other nose, just organic noses. And basically what it does is +30% cooking speed, which apparently equals to like 5 levels of cooking skill. But it's only for speed. It's not gonna give them actual skill, it's only for speed. So it is pretty decent for like mid to, well, maybe low to mid range cooks. But otherwise, it's not really worth. I would rather spend the resources on crafting something else. So we're gonna put this one down here in like a C tier. Now we're going for brain implants, and next on the list we have Joywire. Joywire, it's pretty cheap to make. Installs into pawn's brain. It cannot be removed, so keep an eye on that. It cannot be removed unless you somehow remove the pawn's head and then regrow it when they're dead. Let's not go into that. Joywire basically gives a +30 mood buff to the colonists permanently, but reduces their consciousness by 20%. Really, this is only useful in like forever broken colonists that you want to install this into them. But 20% consciousness is huge malice, because consciousness really affects everything they do. So they will be much worse at everything they do. So Joy Wire is like a last resort thing. I really wouldn't use it. Maybe put it into slaves or something like that if you really want to use it. So we're gonna put this down here into C tier. Next we have Pain Stopper. Now this one also goes into brain and basically removes all the pain that there exists for that pawn. They're gonna get shot, they will feel no pain. They're gonna get stabbed, they will feel no pain. Now there are bonuses to this and there are malices to this. Bonuses, if they have like old scars that you can't really fix with, I don't know, Biosculptors or Luciferium or something like that, they will no longer feel pain from that. Now keep in mind, the masochists get a mood bonus from pain, but usually don't really have a full colony of masochists, so you don't really need to worry about that. It will make your soldiers stand and fight until they pretty much are dead, or they maybe lose a leg or something like that, you know. Usually the pain will down them, and then, you know, the enemies are gonna focus on somebody else. But if you really want Terminators, you might want to install this into them. Just keep in mind that they might die if you just let them fight. So keep an eye on their injuries and then pull them out before it gets too bad. But still, it also really works really well if you install this into Wimps, because basically it eliminates the Wimp trait at all. So, you know, for that it's good. I think it's like in the middle of the pack over here. We're gonna put it into B tier. Next on the list we have the Circadian Assistant. This bad boy, it will cost you plasteel and advanced components to craft. It will reduce the need for sleep and the amount of time your colony spends sleeping by like 20%, I believe. So that means 20% more time to work through the day and play and have fun. But mostly you would want them to work. So this is pretty decent on, let's say, your researchers or your crafters, or basically most of your workers that you would want crafting all the time. Now, there is a malice to this. The EMP, once again, is a problem, same as we were talking about with prosthetic stomachs last couple of days ago in the prosthetic ranking. Same here. If they get hit by EMP, they will go into like brain shock or brain trauma for a bit and they will just be downed. So be very careful who you install this into. You don't want them close to EMP. Now usually enemies coming at you don't have EMP weapons, so it's not a problem, but maybe your melee people that go and melee, let's say mechanoids that you are supporting with EMP, you don't want those with these assistants, so that's a problem. But otherwise, for crafting and such, really good thing. We're gonna put it up here into A tier. Next on the list, we have the Circadian Half Cycler. This one is the radical version of the previous one, because basically your pawns never need to sleep anymore. So they can just work and play all day long without any need to sleep. Now, this has a side effect, not just the EMP we were talking about before, but also they lose 15% consciousness, which is huge. So everything they do will be slower. They will do everything slower. But if you do have a person that's just crafting the whole day without a need to sleep, they'll still do more work than if they just crafted without this bad boy. If they just crafted, went to sleep, and then, you know, woke up and crafted again, they would still do more work this way, even though they would be doing it slower because of the less consciousness. But this really goes for just mostly crafters and such. And for my fighters, I would rather not install this, and pretty much everybody in my colony is always a fighter. So this is kind of a, you decide if you want it or not. Are you okay with the malice, or if you're not okay? So we're gonna put it out here in the middle of the pack. Next on the list we have Learning Assistant. Basically, this is a great one. Gives everybody plus 20% global learning speed. If you install this on Colin's Brain, they have plus 20% global learning speed, which means they will learn all of their skills much faster. And it also stacks with traits that also increase that, so that makes it even better. Everybody's gonna be leveling up their skills fast. Maybe you need a crafter needs like 15 crafting to make something. I don't think there's anything like that in vanilla at all, but for mods and such, you do need that. But still, learning assistant, global learning speed, huge. very good. The only problem, the EMP damage, but once again, it's a very niche problem. So I think this one belongs up here into S tier. Next on the list, we have the Mind Screw, very cheap to build. It gives plus 20% permanent pain to the colonists that this is implanted in. It cannot be removed, so, you know, keep an eye on that. It's really the only benefit. Might have some masochist because they will always feel pain and they will always feel happy about that. That will, of course, that pain might lower their consciousness and some such, so it's gonna affect this as well. If you install this into a wimp, they'll just be permanently down. So a bit of an issue. Still, not a very good thing, not a very useful thing. Very cheap to build though, but if you want to maybe put it into a masochist, I'd rather go with something else. I'd rather go with other implants. So we're gonna put this down here into F tier. Next, we have the Neuro Calculator. This bad boy gives your researchers plus 20% research speed. You really want this on your researchers because they will, you know, work faster and research things faster. Although usually when you get to this point where you can make these, you don't have that much to research. So it might be more useful when playing with mods, when you have like hundreds of mods and hundreds of things to research. Definitely a bigger benefit. But maybe if you buy one early on and you have a good doctor, you can actually safely install this. It can be pretty decent, but it's only really for researchers. So kind of middle of the pack. We're gonna put it out here into B tier. The last four you cannot craft, so keep that in mind. You can only get them through quests or buy them. And the first one is the Psychic Harmonizer. The colonist that this has installed in his brain is gonna project his mood in like a 30 tile radius around him. Basically, if they have positive mood, everybody around them are gonna have some bonuses, you know, they're gonna have some positive moods. If they're in negative mood, well, that can be a problem. So really, you want to install this, if you're installing this, into somebody that is always happy and easily in very good positive moods. Now, this is really the only version where Joywire kind of works with this because, you know, always have positive moods and not such like that. So maybe I would install this on like a otherwise useless colonist, give them a Joywire, give them this, and they can just be very happy boy. I've never really done that before. I don't really use this. It's just like, you know, because I'm usually playing the highest difficulties, people are not happy. So having this boost, I don't know, doesn't work that well. But you know what? If you really want to put it to good use, you can, especially if you have somebody that is psychically hypersensitive, because that's gonna boost the mood that he's projecting. And of course, if the pawn that is receiving the boost is also hypersensitive to psychic stuff, they will also get a bigger boost. So, you know, there's that. Let's put this out here somewhere into B tier. Next on the list, we have the Psychic Reader. Again, cannot craft these. This is basically a boost to negotiation and trade price improvement. I think it's like 10% for trade prices. So basically, if you are installing this into somebody, you want them into your most social pawns because it scales with social skill. It also scales with psychic sensitivity. And really, if you have them on traders, those people will get a bit of a bonus when trading with ships or, you know, caravans, and people that might recruit your prisoners if you are on that recruiting duty. So we're gonna put this out here into like a low B tier. It's not the best, but you know, it can be useful. Next, we have the Psychic Sensitizers. Basically, this is only really useful for Psycasters. It improves the psychic sensitivity by like 25%. So if you have somebody that's, you know, Psycaster, maybe give them this, but even then for them, it's not the best. For other colonists, it's usually just an issue because you're gonna have psychic drones and such, and you know, they're gonna feel it much more. So I don't think this is the greatest, but it can be used for Psycaster. We're gonna put it down here into like a C tier. Last and almost certainly the least, we have the Death Acidifier. You will, of course, usually see those Empire soldiers when they die and all of their armor and weapons that have in their inventory is gonna get destroyed and you get nothing from it. What fun! Isn't there? That's such a fun mechanic in RimWorld. Yes, I love it. You can actually buy these from traders if you want, but there is no benefit to install them on your soldiers because it's just gonna remove their stuff that had in their inventory when they died. So there is that. It is the lowest of the low and the worst mechanic in the game ever. There we go. We have ranked all the implants. If you haven't seen the prosthetics video, go check that out. There's gonna be a link up here. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you would put into S tier, what would you put into F tier, and where you disagree with me or agree with me. Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching.